Good afternoon. Okay, so AI operating model. What does this topic, what are we trying to discuss here? Now, over the last year, we are well and truly in the AI age. I don't think there's any argument about proof of concept, proof of scale. We are definitely, there's a whole host of activity happening in AI, around AI across enterprises. But it's probably also fair to say that some of the initial enthusiasm, there has been a bit of a reality check. That converting the pilots into, turning them into production and then scaling them and then getting impact from them, these are all steps. And there are significant breakpoints that happen across. And I think there is a growing realization that this is not just about a series of one-offs, that we have to take a more enterprise-wide, a more strategic view to AI. And through the morning, I think we have heard multiple times that incrementalism will only get us so far. We have to not just modernize, we have to reimagine. And that's a very, very different thought process. And there are multiple aspects to it, both from a business perspective, what you're trying to solve, to architecture, to workflows, to data, to security and governance, and most importantly, the human aspects and change management. That while we are in the AI age, paradoxically, the human aspect doesn't go away. So to discuss all of this, I have two friends and formidable industry leaders, Nilesh, CIO from DTCC, and Sid Vyas, CIO at LPL Financial, which is DTCC is bedrock of the capital markets kind of industry, and LPL is the largest independent broker dealer now in the country. So both have a ringside view to this issue of how do you scale, how do you really drive it, not sporadically, but really as a very systemic process. So let's dive in. So the way we are going to do it is that first I'm going to ask both Nilesh and Sid to share at the high level that how this journey from pilots to kind of more enterprise-wide, what does that look like for DTCC and LPL respectively? And then there are a couple of specific themes that we will dig into. So without further ado, Nilesh, over to you.
Thanks, Nitin, and good afternoon, everyone. I just want, before I delve a little bit into what we are doing, I wanted to give you all a little bit of context around what DTCC does. We are the premier post-trade market infrastructure provider for global financial services institutions. And our goal is to standardize, centralize, and automate post-trade transactions so that we are able to take out risk out of the market and enable growth for global financial institutions. To give you a sense of our scale, we processed around $3.8 quadrillion of assets in 2024. So quadrillion is 1 followed by 15 zeros, right? So those are the kinds of numbers we use. And we also host the world's largest depository. So we've got a depository which has about 1.5 million active issues, and the net asset value we hold in the depository is around 99 trillion. So tremendous scale underpins us. We are also highly regulated. So 23 different regulatory agencies across the world regulate us. And that demands high resiliency, high stability, high performance from all of our infrastructure, which we put out in the market. So our journey on the AI front, I think parallels a lot which other companies have gone through, right? So with ChatGPT bursting onto the stage, that was the first step in the process where a lot of companies got excited with it. We did as well. And that led to a lot of experimentation, right? So there was a lot of experimentation within the company, but there weren't a lot of things which came out as pilots. So 23, 24 experimentation. In 25, we launched a series of initiatives which I would describe are initiatives which actually have tangible ROI attached to them. So an example would be initiatives in our customer experience area, where we've used, we have a complex risk calculator which calculates collateral, which we ask of companies who are our participants. We made that a lot more easier for our participants to consume by having a Gen AI interface which sits on top of that. So a number of these kinds of initiatives we developed in the past year, and they have tangible ROI or customer experience aspects attached to them. Another area was customer support. How do you gain efficiencies out of customer support? But the next step in the process, which we are actively engaged on, is how do you do this at scale? How do you do this across the company, where you've got this innovation which becomes a part of the regular cadence of our company's operating ethics? And there are a few things we've been focused on in order to do that. One is an AI policy. How do you build a policy which clearly lays out to your entire staff what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in terms of your Gen AI projects? And what are the guardrails around all of these projects, right? Security, risk management. So we've tried to lay that out in an AI policy which is transparent and accessible across the company. The second area of focus is setting up an AI enablement team, which we did for these projects, but I think it becomes even more important now because a lot of our processes need to be changed in order to enable these large-scale experimentation we are talking about. So a specialized team which enables removing roadblocks, help all of these projects move forward is the second area of focus. The third area of focus has been around the tooling. How do you democratize this tooling across the company? A lot of questions on build and buy. How do you orchestrate multiple agents across the different departments? So that's the third step we are focused on. And we've already rolled out, especially in the agentic world, specific platforms which our employees can use to create agents across departments at scale. The next area of focus is around upskilling, and I think this is something which we'll discuss in more detail. But that is an area where we are uplifting our workforce, and there are a number of things we've done both for our leadership as well as for our general employee population in terms of on-demand training as well as specialized training they can take to upskill themselves. And lastly, but not the least, it is the change management aspect of it, right? How do you get your leadership all aligned around this so that they are vested stakeholders around building AI at scale? And specifically, what goals are they setting for themselves and what goals are they setting for the organization so that this comes to play? In fact, we have in our performance management process this year, there's an AI goal which everyone in the company needs to partake as a part of their performance plan. So it's a bottoms up approach and a tops down approach where everyone's saying like, what is it that I'm going to do to advance AI in my department, my function, my area? So it's a number of things. All of these things have to come together in order for us to get experimentation, go away from experimentation and go to this AI operating model which we are talking about.
Thank you, Nilesh. You've laid out the playbook very nicely, 5 well-structured points. You've done my job as the consultant on the panel. So thank you so much for that. Also the quadrillion, as somebody comes from wealth management. I was still used to trillions, but quadrillion is it's getting some used to. No, thank you so much, Sid. Also your role in LPL, that you are the scaling guy in LPL. Your job is to make sure that things happen at scale and they, with the right kind of stability and resilience. So talk to us, that this whole journey from AI pilots to AI at scale and embedding in the operating model of LPL. What does that look like?
Thank you, Nitin and Nilesh. Thank you for a great overview there. It's been quite an impressive journey you guys have taken on. So just like Nilesh gave an overview of DTCC, I would like to start with let folks know what LPL is all about. Well, LPL is the largest independent broker dealer, and for independent advisors, we are the largest platform providers today in the United States. We have about 32,000 advisors on the platform, financial advisors, with 2.3 trillion assets under management, and we are significantly growing year over year with a 10+% annual growth, right? So if you look at that, that's been a very impressive. I've been with LPL for about 16 17 months now as the Chief Technology Officer. So when I joined, we were just started with the Gen AI journey, like how do we use some of the use cases around Gen AI, like customer service, internal approvals, things of that nature, that those are the things, how are we? So we started playing with that. We have a large customer service contingent for our advisors, any issues they have. So how do we make those customer service agents much more knowledgeable and have the tools at their fingertip, information at their fingertips using Gen AI so they can serve our advisors and their customers better. So that's how the journey started with some of those specific use cases in customer service, internal approvals, internal knowledge management, leveraging Gen AI. And then we started thinking about that we should not be use case focused. We need to start thinking about holistically what our AI journey will look like, not only from internal perspective, but how do we enable our advisors to be leveraging, harnessing the power of AI and increasing the revenue for their businesses? How do we improve the advisor productivity? So that's where we tilted and started looking at what are the things we need to enable our advisors with. So that's what has been the journey this year. We started looking at that. And that requires not only just thinking about a use case specific aspect, but big picture. So things which Nilesh mentioned, we have established now a AI governance board. The big focus is on how do we make sure that whatever tools and agentic workflows we put together on behalf of our advisors and their customers, the security and governance is a topmost priority. We as a financial institution holds customers' trust. If we lose that trust, that's game over for us, right? So making sure that anything which goes in there has to be fully secure, doesn't have any kind of leakage of information. So a lot of focus has been on AI governance and putting that infrastructure in place with information security to ensuring that we have the infrastructure in place to scale, to Nitya's point, how are we going to scale that so that we now have that, we have the AI strategy in place, and we are spending now things. We have started with board, the change management, enabling providing our board a complete overview of what our journey will look like, our management committee, and now in our 2026 goals, there are the things which are AI specific related for each department, each area, what are the specific goals they need to achieve, whether it's a revenue side or growth side or cost side. So.
It's very interesting, Sid, that both you and Nilesh talked about AI governance and specific mechanisms for driving that in your enterprises. And it's again quite paradoxical that looking to drive disruption and growth, but how governance ends up being such an important aspect of that. And we'll come back to governance. But when I think about your respective businesses, what really stands out is that both are in regulated industries. Both of you talked about your customer. You Sid talked about the advisor, and Nilesh, you talked about customer experience. And the moment you start touching the customer, the regulators get extremely anxious. So how do you drive big kind of AI disruption, innovation in highly regulated industries? How do you make the elephant dance?
I mean, so that's a great question, Nitin. I think the key aspect is understanding and with working with your regulators in lockstep. The transparency is important. Walking your regulators through that, hey, this is the things we are enabling for our customers, for our advisors, and here are the guardrails. They are very much interested in that. How are you going to govern it? And that's why the aspect comes in. So the transparent communication, we meet quarterly with our regulators, and we provide them an overview. Hey, these are our roadmap items. This is how we are trying to enable these things for our customers. And here are the guardrails we have put around to make sure that none of the PII stuff leaks, none of the challenges happens. So that's a very important part. You don't want to surprise your regulator. That's the key mantra here, right? You want to make sure that your regulator has a full understanding of what you're trying to deliver. So.
It's a great point. So I think that is definitely kind of our model as well, where you are in tight coordination with different regulatory agencies around what you're trying to do. The other mindset shift which we have in the organization is that innovation and regulatory meeting the regulatory mandates, it's an and between both of those, right? And they feed off each other. So I think if you are doing good risk management, if your IT systems are stable, if you don't have a lot of regulatory, if you don't have customer experience challenges, if you're in control of the way in which you're running your business, that actually frees you up to do innovation, because then you're not fighting fires, you're not trying to put out solve for some of these very tactical issues. You made the right investments and there's the right degree of stability, and that frees up the organization to focus on innovation. So that's a virtuous cycle between being regulatory compliant, being in control of your environment, which is what the regulators really want, and then innovation is kind of feeding off that.
So I think what both of you are saying is that a regular dialogue, that communication between the regulator and yourself, and you feel that they are kind of more receptive to those conversations?
Yeah, I think Nilesh made a very good point about that. Hey, if you have the things, regulators wants to see things running smoothly, right? We are regulated by multiple state jurisdiction and FINRA and other entities, right? So we have many regulators, many masters to please, right? So they want to make sure that your core operations are operating smoothly, so they will not create hindrance in your innovation journey. If you have challenges within your core operations, that's when the regulators say, hey, you cannot get your core operations right. You need to get that right before you start embarking on something new and disruptive.
And it's again one of those paradoxes that you need to get your operations right, your guardrails in place to really unlock innovation. Let's stay on the topic of innovation, because see today one of the key kind of features of AI as it is getting implemented is that a lot of it is internal, a lot of it is very cost focused, whereas most of us would recognize that the bigger business impact is perhaps more on the customer and the revenue side. But then there is also a tension between the short term and the long term. The more cost or agentic kind of transformation type of opportunities are perhaps more short term. That's also where there is a tension between maybe the CFO expectations, which is that show me tangible cost reduction in for our P&L for 2026 that I can bake into the budget. Yeah, versus kind of really, not just solving for today or yesterday's problems, but building for tomorrow. So, do you face this tension, and if yes, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, no, I think it's the reality of the business all of us live in, right? And I also believe that the maturity curve, which I spoke about earlier, in terms of how you evolve your portfolio of projects from incremental cost takeout to more of the transformative, lines up nicely with the way in which we would want to fund some of these initiatives. So I do think there are opportunities to be had in cost takeout, right? Either cost takeout or increasing capacities. For example, we have spent a lot of time and energy in empowering our software development teams with AI capabilities. And what that allows us to do now is we have extra capacity which shows up in the system because we are more efficient in the way in which we are delivering our projects. And so I think that creates a value chain where you can now use that capacity and invest that capacity in transformative projects and drive transformation. So I think they link off each other. If you are cost conscious, if you are able to take out costs, you can use that to fund transformative investments.
Yeah, it is a business imperative. People will ask that, hey, what are the cost savings? If I'm going to spend 100 million, 10 million, what is my ROI? Where will I see the results back? So it is important, but key aspect is that some of these AI tools now help us unlock the capacity in the software development, as Nilesh mentioned, right? So now what we can do is we can take some projects at a lower cost because now we have these capabilities where we can deliver more with the same number of folks or without adding too much incremental stuff. So that is something which uh, CFOs take it very pleasingly that, hey, it used to cost me to do this project. It's similar project, $10 million now. Now you can do it for 7. That's the value save right there. So that's something which is how you go and say that, yeah, we're going to do the cost savings, but at the same time, in order to do the transformative stuff, here is how we're unlocking the capacity to do that work.
Again, it's about mastering that duality, that if you want to do bigger stuff, deliver on some real impact, financial impact, before that. Let's change tracks a little bit. So as we go beyond the AI use cases, pilots to more enterprise-wide, the key asset is data. That's your enterprise asset. So how do you think about data? To what needs to be done to really enable AI, and do you do it in a way so it doesn't become a bottomless pit? Because data is one of those things that it can be, you can just be doing, investing, without sometimes seeing returns. So would love to hear your thoughts about data. That what are some of your initiatives around data so that it becomes what it is, very necessary enabler for AI at scale, but at the same time it doesn't become a white elephant.
Yeah. So look, I think there is now a recognition in most enterprises that data is the fuel for AI, right? So if you don't have your data strategy right, if you are not able to muster data within your organization and deliver it to the AI engine, the use cases and the transformation we are talking about is not going to come to fruition. So a lot of financial organizations have already been doing a lot of work around data. And a lot of that in the past has been driven by regulatory projects or projects which enable risk management use cases. So the trick is, in my opinion, if you do this right, then you are when you are building data for one particular use case, if you spend the additional time and energy in creating the right context around the data, you're contextualizing the data so that an AI engine or an AI bot can now come in at for a different use case, but leverage the same contextualization that was created. So that's been our strategy: is you bring in data into the warehouse, you bring in data, catalog and contextualize the data for specific use cases, but do it in such a fashion that it's democratized for the next use case which comes into question. And I think that kind of creates the enterprise nature or the scale you're talking about, right? If you do this for every department, you're going to be stuck in a very expensive proposition of doing it. So I think having an enterprise lens and doing it from that perspective is critical.
Absolutely. I think Nilesh hit the point on that. You have to look at data. Data is the fuel. Data is the one on which AI will nurture. That's how it will provide the benefits what you are envisioning, right? So if you don't do the data modernization right, that's not going to do it. And it has to be done at an enterprise level rather than in the silos. We have taken a journey on modernizing our data platform. Nitin, you're very familiar with
Yes.
that, as you guys are helping us out on that, right? So that is important, because not only you need to have the data available and modernized for your AI use cases with the right context, right catalog, etc., as Nitin mentioned, but you want to make sure those data platforms are available in a fashion where you can immediately scale your work. Your initial question, Nitin, was about how we're thinking about scaling. You don't want to stuck in that, hey, you want to be on a cloud platform where you can immediately scale your things around your AI use cases. If your data is not on there, then you will have to start thinking about it, that how do I bring that scale to that? So modernizing data with an enterprise lens and on a scalable platform is the key for your AI success.
Great. So far in the conversation, we have covered a lot of the left brain topics, business value, governance, data, various trade-offs, working with the CFO. But let's not turn to the right brain. And, I'm also, just releasing my new book, Human Edge in the AI Age. So it's a topic which is uppermost in my mind. So the human edge, the AI future organization or an AI native business, that's what we are talking about. What do both of you see as the human edge in that AI native model? And also then how within your enterprises, how are you thinking about talent and what is it differently that you're looking to do?
I can start. I think humans are going to be as important. All this talk about that, hey, the AI will replace every job is just not feasible. It's not going to happen because the humans are the one who are going to provide the business domain, the context, information to your agents, right? If the agents has to perform, they cannot be bring that human understanding right away. So the human has to oversee those agentic workflows, the agentic transformations, right? So human becomes an important part. And that's how we're approaching our workforce and making sure that they understand that it's not that the agent is just like with the software use case we talked about. The developers are not going to be like become redundant. Developers are going to use those tools and become more productive. Similarly, in the business transformation and other things, humans are going to make sure that they become more transformative and provide more value by providing the context, the knowledge, the domain expertise to the agents and scaling those agents significantly.
Yeah, Sid, no, I agree 100% that the talent is certainly going to be needed. The one other recognition we have, in addition to what you said, is the skills which the talent will need, that is going to change, right? So I think it's going to have implications in terms of how job families are structured, how, what HR has to do working in closely with the business to ensure that we now have a framework for identifying, attracting, motivating, retaining these new skills and upgrading talent where appropriate to use those skills. So I think that's a dimension, to your point, Nitin, around the softer nature of things, right? How do we do this in a way that we are able to help people manage through that change?
Very reassuring that we do have a role for humans. So that's good news, which is also my point. Now, the final question from my side before we open it up to the audience, which is about change management and the role of leadership and leaders. We often say, no, we got it figured out. It's like a middle management issue. Yeah. So is it a middle management issue? Is it a top management issue? How do you think about change management and kind of driving that?
I think it's probably the most important of all of the things we've talked about is how do you cascade this thing through the organization? It has to start from the top. It has to be, you obviously need to enable people to do it, but we need our leaders to drive and manage through this change. And I think what we are lucky to have a CEO who's very clear on the use of this technology within our organization. At senior management forums, there's been significant time allocated to the conversation on AI, both educating leaders, right? So especially senior management on what the power of this technology is, hands-on sessions so that they can actually see the value of the technology, but then clear goals so that they can drive through the change. So I think it has to come from the top in order for that change management, because look, I think some things are going to go right, some things are not going to go right. And in that scenario, where you've got to balance between things which have gone right and things which have not gone right, leadership is going to be critical in managing through it.
No, absolutely. I think the change management has to, the organization has to see the value coming all the way from the CEO and board and management committee. And we're fortunate to have our CEO and management committee fully engaged in this discussion and driving forward. They are very much looking how do they get themselves educated, get themselves well versed in that so they can communicate. Any town halls, we talk about these things from a CEO town hall perspective. And that's an important aspect, because if people don't see the top management embracing and addressing the challenge of heads on, that what it means for the rank and file team members, right? What it means for all the colleagues, what this AI revolution means for all the colleagues is very important. And we have to address that heads on to an effective change management.
Excellent. We've covered both the brains, left and right. So over to the audience now. We have two exceptional leaders. So your chance to ask them questions.
I think it's between lunch and us. We're standing between.
No, we will use our time. You have a mic there.
Super. Gentlemen, well done. Very, very interesting comments. I love the parallels, a little bit at the organizational kind of approach to thing. The interesting thing is, as I sat here and listened to the comments, both firms, DTCC and LPL, have a significant stakeholder role in the post-trade settlement process. They're very, very interconnected. So I have kind of a two-part question. So one, how much is each firm kind of aware and thinking about what the other's doing with respect to AI and enablement in order to kind of create better velocity, security in the post-trade process? And the second, has collaboration started, or do you see a day where you're collaborating across firms around AI strategies to make this easier and better?
Maybe I'll start. I do think that is a critical part of the thinking, especially given our role in the global financial markets, right? So the way DTCC is structured in particular, we are at the center of an ecosystem and orchestration of this complex post-trade workflows. So, and it gets reflected in a number of ways, right? So our structure, our governance structure itself is such that we've got senior members of a variety of our industry on our board. So that starts with that and kind of clear clarity on the things we are embarking on and the initiatives we are embarking on are of value broadly to the industry. But then there is a significant amount of outreach we do today and we will continue to do on engaging with our different partner firms and talking to them about what we are doing and what they are doing and how we need to be jointly aligned. So a lot of that dialogue is very critical and crucial to the success of the overall post-trade ecosystem.
Thank you, Nilesh. Great question, John. I think it's important for market participants to know each other. This is not a competition, but it's a co-opetition, right? You have to, in this journey, make sure that you learn from each other and you provide that you don't have to share trade secrets, but at the same time, broadly, how others are leveraging, that is very important. We do participate with a lot of our advisors. We do a lot of seminars, a lot of conferences. So we get the input from them. We provide them what value. But what Nilesh mentioned, market participants coming in the forums and sharing the knowledge with each other. We participate in some of those and share what we're doing versus what our peers and other companies are doing. So that's an important part.
It's almost felt like matchmaking on the stage here. Maybe time for one more question.
So I think a question to both of you that really it's a lot of interaction you have with the ecosystem of your clients and the larger, organizations you work with. That's what's value gets created into the larger ecosystem. But when you take up these ideas, when you talk about really collaborating with your clients out there, collaborating and or pushing the use cases that you feel is going to create more value for them, how does that conversation really go? And how are they really, you feel, are scaling up, adapting to the possibility, my kids at home are playing with ChatGPT. I might have to start to bring in the notion of AI, Gen AI into the way I work as well. Or in your case, really, Nilesh, much larger institutions. How is that conversation going? And how is the collaboration going to maybe work upon some joint use cases and exchange of ideas, which in turn leads to what things do I need to really prioritize upon?
And maybe it's relevant for Sid as well, that because your customers, the advisors,
Yeah.
may not be as sophisticated. So
Yeah.
question to both of you.
So from an, I'll take a step first, right? The advisors, like you said, that they are more interested in like how do they improve their business, and they keep hearing about these things. So we have a twofold role. A, how do we provide them the context and say what are the art of possibility here, right? What can be done using AI? And then understanding the use cases from their pain points, and then coming up with a solution. So that's the what you say in a B2C kind of a thing. Now that changes when you go B2B, like that's where you start thinking about, hey, we have these interactions with our providers or whether our partners, what are we doing, exchanging of information, and how we can make it more efficient. And that's where those industry forums comes in place.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the interesting part is AI actually is a big enabler of this, because we've always had conversations with our clients and we continue to have conversations with them, but AI is exceptionally good at going through all of these conversations and identifying key themes, so what we are seeing is that was one of the first projects we launched around how do we get better at our client insights, so that when we go to them, we are solving a pain point which they actually have, and it's serving the large subset of our participants, right? So I think that's one thing we've leveraged AI very heavily for, is understanding at a better, deeper level what's going to be beneficial for our clients. And then you start the conversation and the dialogue. That's the next level of conversation which Sid talked about.
Great. That was awesome.
Thank you. We are at time. I'll close here. Thank you both, Nilesh and Sid. Let's have a round of applause for both of them.
Thank you.
I enjoyed and learned a lot from these two leaders, and I hope you did as well. Can we have a final picture before we?
Yeah.